All right, good morning.
Good morning.
You guys hear me okay? You know, inspiration comes in many forms. And usually what I get inspiration from when I do messages is usually what's going on in my life. Usually God speaks to me through some situation, through some activity that's happening. And not a whole lot. This summer the COVID is happening, other than the news of a baby coming in about 4 months. But it hit me one day recently that I was outside doing some yard work. And, around the house, around the yard, trying to do some, yard work, some natural beautification. And one day it hit me. I saw weeds growing in places that nothing should be able to grow. In my front yard, we have a shed right next to a carport. Between the shed and the fence, it's about a foot. It's shaded, minimal sunlight, but we had a tree growing there that I had to cut down recently. And as I was actually on the neighbor's side of the fence, cutting it down, looking down, I see all these weeds, blackberries, weeds, a tree about that round growing, shot up. And I'm thinking, how does something grow like that? And then I went to my back shed, where my lawnmower and my tools are kept, and we have weeds growing through the boards. A shed that gets closed,
No light.
no light, or minimal light, that it grows in the remotest places that no one would think it would thrive. Sometimes weeds are something that, overtakes a section and are hard to get rid of, especially blackberries. And I'm sure some of us know what we're talking about there. So it got me thinking, here in that stretch of land between the shed and the fences, rocks, dirt, hardly any sunlight, but this tree grew along with blackberries and other weeds. And one thing I know is these weeds won't last long. That without a good foundation, without good soil to do so. So it reminded me of the parable of the sower. I kind of want to look at a few of these verses. We're going to look at Jesus' explanation of them and kind of just go over them this morning. And I titled this message, A Good Foundation is Everything. If you have your Bibles, turn to me to Matthew chapter 13. I'm going to start with verse 18. So Matthew 13, verse 18. It says, "Therefore hear the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom, and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who received the seed by the wayside. But he who received the seed on the stony places, this is where he hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. Now he who receives the seed among the thorns is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. But he who receives seed on the good ground is he who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. First point this morning I want to make is that those that don't have the foundation to succeed won't grow into much or at all. And, as I said, foundation is the key to growth. You look at the seed here that is thrown by the wayside. The wayside here is that beaten path along the road. It's not for growing anything. It's usually hard packed. Nothing can really penetrate it. That any seeds that do get planted along that way or get thrown around that way is beaten and trampled by the first such a things walking on it. It doesn't have a chance to grow. It doesn't have a chance to succeed because it doesn't get deep enough to grow roots. It sits on top of the soil, on top of the wayside there, and gets plucked out of the air from the birds. And unfortunately, we've met people like this who may come, hear a message, but it doesn't mean anything to them. So they go back and live their life. It's like being plucked from the birds. They had no foundation in God, and Satan realizes this and plucks them one by one. It's easy pickings for him, for Satan. They didn't believe or wanted to believe that there is a God. A God that cares for them, a God that laid down his life for them, a God that gave them the ultimate sacrifice of a child so they may one day see come up in heaven. And unfortunately, this part of the parable in today's times seems to be the norm. Unfortunately, to me it seems like people today don't care, don't know, don't want to understand that there is a God for them. They may hear the message a lot of times, but it doesn't sink in them. It doesn't have a chance. It just bounces right off of them. Kind of like when you throw a seed along the wayside. Their mind is already made up that God doesn't exist. That how could there be a God that created the universe? But yet they believe we came from slime on a rock. They believe that science is one thing, and they believe that, but they won't even look at the other side of things. The science that disagrees with them. That their foundation is already built. Their mind is already made up. Their hearts are already hardened. And that their foundation is built upon the deceitful lies that Satan has told them. We look at this group of people that have no foundation built with God, that and there's another foundation that is built, but it isn't built on a solid foundation. It's those that receive the seed on stony places. Verse 20, it says, "But he who received the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles." A foundation that is built among these stony places among stones is one that will cave once it faces its first sign of trouble. Unfortunately, I've also seen this foundation in too many people that we come in contact with. I've seen the joy that comes along when they first visit, when they first hear the message. It comes along with hearing the gospel message, but yet they don't grow the roots needed to survive. Once a problem arises, they've gone back to the old ways. And a lot of that has to deal with, with pride or with knowing better than what God knows for our lives. These people really haven't changed fully inside. It might be an outward change. It may be, but they don't fully trust God inside with all their heart, all their mind, all their soul. So when the first problem arises, or a couple problems arise after that, but they don't want to know, they don't want to face that problem with God. They rather just do it themselves, rather go back, and they want to do it their way. And all of us probably have experienced this at some point in our lives where we want to solve our own problems, where we think that we know better. These people have commitment issues and trust with God. They like the excitement that comes along with the beginning with God. Maybe it made them feel happy at that time, but haven't truly changed inside. Unfortunately, we see this a lot happen with our youth. Our teenagers that come through, or church camp, or here, where they want to live a life with God, and as soon as something happens, they're back to who knows doing what. They get excited. They almost get a natural high from the excitement. But once something happens, they leave. They go back to their previous life. They kind of remind me of the weeds that sprout up, but start to wilt due to the sun. They don't have that root system to grow. They die away from the harsh conditions that present themselves outside. They wilt away and die inside instead of staying and fighting to stay alive. And I guess for us as a church, when we see these people or know that they're young in their Christian lives, what are we doing to help them grow? Are we helping them develop roots? I know they end up going back to a life that doesn't honor God. They only here for a second, really. Their foundation isn't built on solid ground. It's built on multiple little stones that wash away once trouble hits. A little foundation with a little soil will make things grow, but will crumble, come tumbling down once trouble hits. I'm hoping that your foundation isn't this way this morning. I sure hope not. You know, a good foundation can still grow up bad things. And, you know, what we're into, exactly what that means. It's, you know, just because you have a good foundation doesn't always mean you have the right formula to succeed. You know, what grows widely behind the fences over here?
Blueberry.
Blackberries. Just literally right over the fence. Blackberries. You know, when I think of bad things growing up in a good foundation, good soil, blackberries come to my mind. That, you know, blackberries aren't necessarily bad altogether. You know, we enjoy the fruit of it. But once that fruit's plucked, once that fruit's gone, you don't have anything to do with blackberries. And why is that?
You don't want to get poked.
Because you don't want to get poked. It hurts. You know, if you're not careful, it's going to get you back. You know, blackberries are one of those things that they grow everywhere. You know, in my yard, one of my neighbors just recently cut down some of the blackberries that were growing in between our fences. But we have blackberries out in the alley, and they grow wildly, and I'm going to have to go out there and chop them back here soon. But, you know, most of the year, the blackberry vines won't bear fruit, but it would be thorny all year long. You know, verse 22, it says, "Now he who receives seed among the thrones is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word and becomes unfruitful." You know, eventually, these thorns will choke out the word. You know, that sometimes people get too focused on the cares of this world. And that's what they only focus on. They only focus on money, it seems like. It seems like they only care about, you know, what job, or they only care about their job. You know, we see this in a lot of young adults that have come through here, through any church really. It's just not our province, across the United States, that money takes over. That money becomes their thrones. That it becomes their primary focus. You know, the problem with money is it can always go away. You know, your job, as we have learned through this time, can go away. You know, but something that's never going to go away is God.
Amen.
You know, and that's where our primary focus should be. You know, with money, it can always go away. It seems like you can never have enough. You look at, you know, some of the multi-billionaires, they always want more. They're always trying to, you know, increase their wealth one way or another. It's something that consumes you. You know, they want more and more and more, you know, until it's gone, or until you're gone. You know, you die, you know, you don't take those riches with you. You know, most of the time you leave it to somebody else. You know, these verses here warn us about this. And the thorns beside us can be anything that really isn't related to God. You know, it could be money, it could be jobs, it could be your life, it could be your friends. You know, what we surround ourselves with But who we surround ourselves with is important. You know, you can have a beautiful flower growing next to a blackberry bush, and that blackberry bush is going to overtake that flower. You know, because eventually what you spend most of your time with, what you spend most of your time doing, who you hang out with, will have influence over you. You know, it's going to become your focus. If you're focused on something that isn't God first, you'll find yourself drifting farther apart from God and more towards whatever that main focus is. So just going to ask yourself this morning, what is your focus? What is your focus on? You know, that's you know, sometimes we go through times where we're so focused on something else that it becomes that thorn in our side, or the thorn that's going to choke us out from the Word, from God. You know, that's, you know, for me, it's, you know, there's been times where it's like, yeah, I need more money, I need to do this, I need to do that. But it's never really fully taking me away from God. You know, and that everything I try to do, you know, is to put God first. You know, that God is my hopefully primary focus. You know, it's something that I've tried to live on since I was young. Something that I tried when I was working. You know, there was a few times when I was working at this private dining club that I had to work like the whole day on a Sunday because it was something special, and I hated it. When I did the paper route for a year, everybody would come out during Sunday school, take a nap, so I can be in service. You know, so it's possible to still put God first and still work. You know, it's possible to find jobs that you don't have to work a Sunday. You know, every job I've had before the school district one, I always said I needed Sundays off. If you can't give me a Sunday, I'll find somewhere else that will. A few times where I was working in restaurants, washing dishes, or doing work, whatever, kind of make sure that was the stipulation for hiring. I'll work the other 6 days if you want me to, but Sunday is the day off that I need. It's possible. You know, and a lot of employers will like that upfrontness. You know, that's something I try to tell, you know, those that are in high school and those that young adult age, is to be upfront. You know, if they don't hire you, find a different job. You can go work for Chick-fil-A where they're closed on Sundays. You know, it's possible. You know, I guess the last thing I want to kind of touch upon this morning, it's time to break up the fallow ground, to get rid of the thrones, to get rid of those that stand in your way, those things that are causing you to not put God first. Jeremiah 4:3 says, "For thus says the Lord to the men of Judah and Jerusalem, break up your fallow ground, do not sow among thrones." Fallow ground, you know, means the untilled, the not plowed, the not sown by that which is seeds. You know, it's similar to the wayside. That any effective soil foundation kind of has to be plowed, has to be broken up so that the seed can blossom and succeed in growing roots. Hard-packed dirt, rocks, reeds, thorns, all get in the way of putting down those roots. Building that foundation is needed to grow and blossom into something beautiful. To me, that something beautiful is accepting Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. That we need to build relationships with people and use those friendships to witness to others. As we build those foundations with them, we reach them, we plant the seed. Now here's the thing that I think a lot of us get confused, a lot of us maybe don't understand. Our job is to plant those seeds. Our job is to sow those seeds. Our job is to water those seeds that have been planted. But it's up to God to grow. That's God's job. To increase, to grow, I think a good example of this is Paul here in 1 Corinthians 3. He's talking with Apollos, and he says, 1 Corinthians 3:6 says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, and each one will receive his own reward according to his own labor. Verse 9, for we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, you are God's building. Verse 9 really, just struck a chord with me. We are God's fellow workers. And you think about, God can do it all by himself if he wanted to. He doesn't need our help. He's just that powerful, that almighty. He is God. But God wants us to work with him. To work beside him, to help him further the kingdom. It's our job to go and plant those seeds. Our commandments that he has given to us, to reach those around us, to reach those family members, to reach those friends, to reach those that maybe we just met. And are creating that relationship, that bond with people. 2 Corinthians 6:1, it says, we then, as workers together with them, also plead with you not to receive the grace of God in vain. Once again here, we are workers with them. He doesn't need us, but he wants us to help with them. We need to realize we need him, but he doesn't need us. God's will is going to be done either with or without us anyways. That, that it's only our failure if we choose not to work with God. And, we're all together in this. Just like the example I gave with Paul and Apollos, and God was, one planted, one watered or mentored, and one grew in increase. It isn't up to one person or a small group of people but all of us. You know, are you willing today to start to work and plow the fields? Are you willing to till the ground, get rid of the rocks, the weeds, the thorns, anything that will choke out the word? You know, John 4:35 says, "Do you not say, there are still 4 months, and then comes the harvest? Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look at the fields, for they're already white for harvest." You know, living up here in the Pacific Northwest, the field is ripe for us to start sowing our seed. You know, they're white for harvest. And it's time for us to work with God. You know, because if we're working with God, nothing is impossible. Nothing is off limits. Anything can happen. You know, you may not be the one who maybe wins them to Christ. You may not be even the one who mentors and disciples them. But sow the seeds, till the ground, create relationships. You know, I've shared my testimony many times. It really was someone's unintentional act that sowed the seed. Not even directly at me. It was towards my grandfather on his deathbed, pretty much, where I kind of first realized that I needed God. You know, that it was then that seed was kind of watered and brought to fruition here. Still remember that day I got pulled back in this office here and got witnessed to and gave my life over. You know, that foundation is the key to growth. If we want our church to succeed, it starts with foundation. If we want ourselves to grow, it starts with our foundation. You know, there's three things to a foundation that we kind of touched on. No foundation has no chance of growing. You know, a good foundation can still grow up bad things. And it's time to till the ground so that foundation can be built, that roots can be put down. And I know I didn't get to the last part of these verses about that good foundation. That's a whole new message tonight. But today, this morning, I want you to think where you lie in your foundation. Where are you? You know, are you in that hard, trampled ground? You know, the ground that it has, or you're in that ground that has some stones and some soil in it. Maybe you're in good soil, but you have things in your life that's going to choke you out from the Word. It's going to keep you away. And hopefully for all of us, we're in that good soil, that good foundation where we can build upon, where we can grow, that we can help others grow as well. You know, if your foundation is set in that good soil, build upon it. You know, if your foundation is in trouble, you build it. And if you have no foundation this morning, start today. Start building it. You know, a strong foundation is everything. A strong foundation will help keep the house up. And a strong foundation is needed for something for you to grow. Now, grow in God, grow together, and let's work together with God to build up the foundation. Miss Marlene comes up here for our song, I just want to end with this verse, 1 Corinthians 3. I'm going to go more about it tonight. But 1 Corinthians 3:11 says, For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ.